The desert of Mars colony was quiet that evening. The red sky stretched wide, and the winds carried fine dust across the empty ground. Aaron, a young pilot in the colony patrol, had been sent out on a routine flight. He expected nothing unusual. Most days were the same, just sand, rocks, and the endless silence of the colony border. But that day was different. As his small patrol craft crossed over a canyon, his radar showed a sudden flash. It was not a signal from Earth, not a beacon from the colony, and not even the mark of another patrol. It was something strange, hidden under the sand. Aaron frowned, adjusted his scanner, and brought the craft down. When he stepped onto the red ground, he noticed a trail of smoke rising not far away. His heart beat faster. Smoke meant fire, and fire meant a crash. He followed the marks, boots crunching against the stone, until he reached the wreck. It was no human ship. The craft was small and curved like a silver shell, half buried in the sand. Blue light flickered weakly from its broken side, and strange symbols glowed faintly near the hatch. Aaron had seen many ships in his training, but never one like this. He whispered to himself, "Not from Earth." Cautiously, he approached. The hatch hissed open, and a weak cry came from inside. Aaron froze. It was not a soldier, not a machine, it was the voice of a child. He rushed forward and found her. The figure was small, curled up near the control seat. She had silver skin that glimmered faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were large and bright, almost glowing with a soft blue hue. She looked terrified, her body shaking. Aaron saw she was injured, a cut on her arm bleeding a dark, shimmering liquid. For a moment, he hesitated. The colony command had always warned against unknown contact. "Do not interfere with alien life forms," the manuals said. But as he looked at her small, weak, and crying, his heart refused to walk away. She was only a child. Aaron pulled off his gloves and gently lifted her. She flinched but did not fight. Her skin felt warm, her breath shallow. He spoke softly, even though he knew she might not understand. "You're safe now. I've got you." The child blinked at him, her glowing eyes filled with confusion, but also trust. Aaron carried her back to his patrol craft. He cleaned the wound with his kit, wrapped it with bandages, and gave her a sip of water. She drank carefully, her small hands trembling. Then she touched his wrist, as if trying to say thank you without words. He sat there, staring at her, realizing the weight of what he had done. If command learned about this, he could be punished. But leaving her behind was not an option. He remembered how his mother used to tell him, "A true person is known by how he treats the weak." That voice guided him now. For 2 days, Aaron kept her hidden. He gave her food, taught her simple words, and watched her begin to smile. She pointed at things and repeated after him, learning quickly. When she laughed, it sounded like the soft chime of glass. Aaron found himself smiling too, forgetting the danger. But the colony soon noticed strange signals in the sky. Other ships had entered the system. One night, when Aaron looked out, he saw them, tall, silver vessels hovering above the horizon. They were not hostile. They seemed to be searching. The child saw them too. Her eyes lit with recognition. She pressed her small hand to the window and then looked back at him. In her language, broken but clear, she said one word, "Home." Aaron understood. The next morning, he carried her out to the canyon. A larger alien ship descended silently, its doors opening with bright light. Figures stepped out, tall beings with silver skin like hers. Their faces were serious, but when they saw the child in Aaron's arms, their expressions changed. One of them bowed slightly to him. The child clung to his neck, not wanting to let go. Her eyes filled with tears, and in a soft voice, she said his name. Aaron. He felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to tell her to stay safe, but he had no words. All he could do was place her gently into the arms of her people. She reached back for him until the door closed. The ship lifted into the sky, vanishing into the stars. Aaron stood alone in the desert. The wind blew dust across his boots, and silence returned. No one in the colony knew what he had done. To them, it was just another day. But to Aaron, it was a day he would never forget. He had saved a child not of Earth. And though he thought the story ended there, deep inside, he felt it was only the beginning. Many years passed after the night Aaron watched the silver ship disappear into the stars. He grew older, left his patrol post, and became a quiet man living on Earth. He worked in the repair docks near the spaceport, fixing small freighters and colony shuttles. People knew him as calm and steady, a man who did his job well but kept to himself. No one knew about the child he had saved. He had buried that memory deep inside his heart, carrying it like a secret flame. Sometimes, on quiet nights, he would look up at the stars and wonder if she had survived, if she remembered him. Then life would pull him back, and he would remind himself that it was just a brief chapter, long ago. But fate had not forgotten. It was a clear evening when the sky above Earth changed. A massive alien ship entered orbit, its silver hull shining against the dark void. The whole planet watched as news channels filled with pictures of the strange vessel. Governments rushed to prepare. Scientists called it first contact, though Aaron knew in his heart it was not the first. The next day, the alien ship sent a message. It requested a landing at Earth's central spaceport. Officials gathered in fear and hope, uncertain of what was coming. Aaron was at the docks that morning, checking the systems of a cargo shuttle, when alarms sounded. Everyone rushed outside. The alien ship descended slowly, light flowing across its surface. It was larger than any human vessel, silent yet powerful. Crowds gathered at the barriers, soldiers lined the platforms, and the world held its breath. The ramp opened. Figures walked down, tall and graceful, their silver skin glowing under the sun. At the center of the group was a woman. She walked with calm steps, her eyes searching. When Aaron saw her, his heart froze. She was no longer a child. She was tall, strong, and carried herself like a leader. Her silver skin shimmered, her blue eyes glowed with steady light, and her presence made everyone step back. She looked at the humans with confidence, but when her gaze moved across the crowd and fell on Aaron, her face changed. She smiled. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, ignoring the guards, the officials, the cameras. She walked straight to him. The people around parted in confusion. Soldiers raised their weapons but lowered them quickly as she raised her hand in peace. "Aaron," she said, her voice clear and strong. The sound of his name from her lips made his chest tighten. She spoke it not as a stranger, but as someone who had carried it for years. Gasps rose from the crowd. Officials looked at one another, uncertain what was happening. Aaron stood frozen, unsure if he was dreaming. "You remember me," she said softly. He nodded slowly, still in shock. "The child in the canyon," he whispered. "Yes," she said. "You saved me when I was small. I never forgot. My people never forgot. And now I am here, because I have come to claim you." The words sent a wave of whispers through the crowd. Soldiers looked at their commanders, who looked back with wide eyes. Claim. No one understood. Aaron felt heat rise in his face. "Claim me?" he asked carefully. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were full of emotion. "Among my people, a life saved is a bond greater than blood. When you carried me from the wreck, you gave me life again. That act tied me to you forever. I was only a child then, but now I return as who I am meant to be. And I stand before you to honor that bond." Aaron's mind spun. He remembered the small figure trembling in his arms, the child who had clung to his wrist with trust. Now she was a woman, a leader, standing before the whole world and speaking of him as if he was more than just a repair worker. The officials stepped forward, trying to take control. One of them asked the alien woman to explain herself. She turned to them politely, saying, "Your world does not yet know our ways. In my culture, to claim someone is to bind lives in loyalty and respect. It is not slavery, not ownership, but the highest honor we give. I have come to bind my life to his, because without him, I would not be here." Her words shook everyone. The officials whispered among themselves. The soldiers lowered their weapons fully now, sensing no threat. The crowd murmured in awe. But Aaron felt only the weight of her eyes on him. He wanted to speak, but no words came. This was too much, too sudden. Yet deep inside, he felt something stir. He remembered her small hand on his wrist, the way she had said his name before leaving. And now, years later, here she was, still speaking his name as if it was precious. The alien woman stepped closer. "Aaron, I know this is unexpected. But I could not live my life without fulfilling what was given that day. I am yours, as much as you are mine, if you will accept it." The crowd went silent. The whole world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his answer. Aaron looked at her, at the child he had saved, now standing as a woman before him. His heart told him this was no accident. This was destiny returning to his door. The spaceport was filled with silence. People stared, unsure if they had heard correctly. An alien leader had walked past generals and world officials only to speak to a simple repair worker. And now she was declaring something no one understood. Aaron felt the weight of every eye on him. Soldiers, reporters, diplomats, all of them waited for his reply. But he had no words. His mind raced. He had once saved a frightened child, but this moment was far beyond anything he had ever imagined. The alien woman, tall and calm, stood before him. Her silver skin shimmered under the sun, and her blue eyes glowed with a steady light. She did not seem embarrassed or uncertain. She spoke again, her voice strong but warm. "In my people's way," she said, turning so all could hear, "to save a life is to tie two souls together. A bond that cannot be broken, not even by time. I was only a child, but I have grown with this bond in my heart. I have come back for him. I claim him." Whispers spread quickly among the officials. Some looked alarmed. Others leaned in with curiosity. The leader of the Earth delegation, a stern man in uniform, stepped forward. "Explain yourself," he demanded. "You say you claim this man. What does that mean? Do you intend to take him from our world? Do you mean to own him?" The alien woman's expression softened, but her words carried authority. "Not own. Never own. Among us, a claim is a vow of loyalty. It is the highest honor. He saved me when I was weak, and now I will stand with him as long as I live. My people recognize this bond. I wish his people to know it too." The crowd stirred again. To them, her words were strange, but they carried a kind of dignity. Aaron finally found his voice. "I never asked for this," he said quietly, but the microphones carried his words across the spaceport. "That night on Mars, I only did what was right. I saw a child who needed help. I could not walk away." The alien woman looked at him with deep respect. "And that is why you are worthy. You gave without expecting. You risked without reward. Such a person is rare in any world." Her gaze held him, steady and unshaken. Aaron felt heat in his chest. He wanted to look away, but he could not. One of the Earth officials stepped closer, his voice sharp. "You cannot simply walk into our world and claim one of our citizens. He belongs to Earth. His duty is here." The alien woman's eyes flashed for a moment, but her tone remained calm. "I do not take him as property. I bind myself to him. If he chooses to remain here, I remain also. If he chooses to walk among the stars, I walk with him. His life is his own, but my life is tied to it. The officials fell into uneasy silence. They had no words for this. It was neither threat nor demand, but something far older, something that felt like honor. The crowd of ordinary people began to whisper differently now. Some were moved by her devotion. Others feared what this bond might mean. Cameras flashed as the moment was broadcast across the planet. Aaron stood at the center of it all, his heart pounding. He remembered the small child with silver skin clinging to him in the canyon. He remembered her voice saying his name before she left. And now she had crossed the stars to stand before him again, still speaking his name as if it was treasure. He looked at her and asked, almost in a whisper, "Why me? Your people are strong. You have leaders, warriors. Why place such weight on me?" Her answer was simple. "Because you were the first to see me not as alien, not as enemy, but as a child who needed help. You did not think of orders. You thought of life. That is the mark of a true protector. That is the mark of someone worth following." Her words echoed across the platform. Even those who doubted her claim felt the truth inside them. The Earth delegation stepped aside to discuss, their voices hushed and urgent. They feared what this bond might mean for politics, for treaties, for power. Yet the alien woman waited calmly, her eyes never leaving Aaron. He felt torn. Part of him wanted to refuse, to step away from the heavy responsibility her claim carried. He was only a repair worker now, not a hero, not a leader. But another part of him, the part that had lifted a child from the wreck years ago, could not ignore her faith in him. The alien woman took a final step forward, close enough that he could see the faint shimmer of her skin, the light in her eyes. She spoke softly, so only he could hear. "I will not force you, Aaron. The bond must be free, or it is nothing. If you refuse me, I will return to my people with honor. But if you accept, I will be yours, and you will never stand alone again." Aaron felt the weight of her words settle in his heart. Around him, the spaceport buzzed with tension. The world was watching. The choice was his. He closed his eyes, remembering the canyon, the small voice calling his name, and the promise he had made to himself long ago to protect the weak, no matter who they were. When he opened his eyes, the alien woman was still waiting, steady and patient. And though he had not spoken yet, the answer had already begun to form in his heart. The days after the landing were filled with tension. All across Earth, people debated what had happened at the spaceport. Some called it a miracle, a bond between two worlds born from kindness. Others whispered of danger, wondering if the aliens were using the story to gain influence over humanity. Aaron found himself at the center of it all. He had lived quietly for years, but now cameras followed him, reporters waited outside his small apartment, and leaders demanded his presence in meetings. He had never wanted fame, but he could not escape it now. The alien woman, whose name was Saran, stayed close to him. She moved with dignity, speaking politely to human officials, but it was clear she valued only one person's opinion, Aaron's. Whenever decisions were made, she turned to him as if his voice mattered more than all others. This confused Earth's leaders. In one meeting at the World Council Hall, officials pressed her for answers. A diplomat leaned forward. "Commander Saran, your bond custom is strange to us. You say this man saved you as a child, and that gives him a claim over your life. But surely you do not expect Earth to accept such a rule." Saran met his gaze calmly. "You misunderstand. It is not he who claims me. It is I who claim him. I tie myself to him by choice, not because he demands it. Among my people, this bond is sacred. To ignore it would be shame. To honor it is the highest respect." Another official frowned. "But he is no leader. He is not trained in diplomacy or war. Why should he be placed in a position of importance simply because of a bond? Saran's eyes flashed. Because leadership is not always born from training. Sometimes it is born from action. He did not hesitate when I needed him most. That is worth more than any title. Aaron sat quietly through these meetings, wishing he could disappear. He felt out of place among the polished uniforms and long speeches. When he spoke, his words were plain, yet everyone listened. I didn't ask for any of this, he said once. I only helped because it was right. His honesty unsettled some leaders but impressed others. Outside the council halls, the culture clash grew sharper. News channels argued day and night. Some praised the aliens for valuing loyalty and honor. Others warned that Earth was being drawn into an alien tradition it did not understand. Crowds filled city streets, holding signs both for and against Saran's presence. In private moments, Saran tried to explain her world to Aaron. They sat together in a quiet garden one evening, away from cameras. The stars shone above them, and the city lights glowed below. In my people's history, she told him, there were wars without end. Clans fought, worlds burned. It was the bond that ended it. When one saved another, loyalty was born. No clan could attack another when bonds tied their people together. Over time, the bonds wove us into one people. Without them, we would have destroyed ourselves. Aaron listened carefully. So for you, this is more than honor. It is survival. Yes, she said. And more than that, it is trust. To stand beside someone without question, to know they will not abandon you, that is strength no weapon can match. Her words stirred something in him. He remembered how lonely he had felt all those years, working quietly, carrying a secret no one knew. And now she sat beside him, speaking as if his simple choice had shaped her entire life. Still, doubts filled his mind. But Earth doesn't see it that way. People here think of freedom, of standing alone, of making their own way. They may not accept what you ask. Saran looked at him with steady eyes. Then let them see not words, but deeds. Let them see what bond means through us. Her confidence unsettled him, yet also gave him strength. The next day, a debate was broadcast live across the world. Saran and Aaron stood before the council. One human leader raised his voice. We cannot allow one man's act to tie Earth to alien ways. This could drag us into wars not our own. Before Aaron could reply, Saran stepped forward. You fear that helping us will cost you. But ask yourselves, what is the cost of turning away from those who reach for you in trust? The bond is not a chain. It is a bridge. We offer friendship, not slavery. We offer loyalty, not conquest. Her words carried across the hall, across the cameras, into millions of homes. Aaron felt eyes turn to him. Slowly, he spoke. Years ago, I didn't think of politics. I didn't think of risk. I only thought of a child who needed help. If I had turned away, I would not be the man I am. If Earth turns away now, what kind of world will we become? The hall went silent. For a moment, even the loudest critics had no answer. The culture clash was far from settled, but one thing was clear. The bond between Aaron and Saran was no longer just their story. It was becoming a choice for all of humanity. Weeks passed since Saran's ship landed on Earth. The council still argued about the meaning of her bond with Aaron, but common people across the planet were slowly divided into two sides. Some admired Saran's loyalty and saw it as proof that humans could build real trust with another species. Others believed danger would follow, that Earth was being pulled into a story it could not control. Aaron tried to live quietly, but it was impossible. His life had changed forever. Reporters followed him. Strangers wanted to shake his hand. Yet deep down, he still felt the same man who once worked with tools in a dusty dock. The only difference was Saran walking beside him, steady and calm, always treating him as if he were more than what he believed himself to be. But soon, everything shifted again. Late one night, alarms rang through the skies. Defense satellites picked up unknown ships entering the edge of the solar system. At first, leaders thought they were more of Saran's people. But when her own crew saw the signals, fear showed on their faces. Saran stood before the council the next morning, her voice heavy. "These are not my ships. They are hunters. Enemies of my people. They have followed us here." The words struck like thunder. The council chamber erupted in voices. "Did you lead them to us?" one general demanded. "Have you brought war to Earth?" Saran did not flinch. "They already knew of my world. They chase us wherever we go. If not here, then somewhere else. But now that they are close, we must prepare. If you do nothing, they will not only destroy my ship, they will see your planet as weak and take it too." The generals grew restless. Some wanted to ready weapons, others wanted to drive Saran and her people away. The risk seemed too great. Aaron sat silently through the storm until Saran turned her eyes toward him. She did not plead, but her look was clear. She trusted him to speak. He stood slowly. "Years ago, I made a choice. I helped someone who could not help herself. That choice saved Saran's life. If we turn away now, if we let fear guide us, then Earth will be no better than those hunters. We have a chance to stand together. We should take it." The chamber quieted. Some leaders still looked doubtful, but others nodded slowly, moved by his words. After the meeting, Saran walked with Aaron through the halls. "They listen to you," she said softly. "Even when they doubt, they hear you." Aaron shook his head. "I don't know why. I'm no leader." She stopped and looked into his eyes. "You are wrong. Leadership is not given by crowns or uniforms. It is given by trust. And you have it." Her words gave him strength, though fear still lingered in his chest. Soon after, Earth ships began to gather in orbit. They were old compared to Saran's sleek vessel, but they were ready to defend. Saran's crew shared what knowledge they could, teaching human pilots new maneuvers, showing them weak points in the hunter ships. For the first time, humans and aliens trained side by side. But not everyone agreed. Some Earth officers whispered that Saran was leading them into a trap. Rumors spread quickly. Aaron found himself defending her again and again. One evening, as they stood near the great windows of the orbital station, he asked her quietly, "What if they are right? What if your enemies came only because you came here?" She looked out at the stars. "Perhaps they did. But they would have come to Earth one day anyway. Hunters are like fire, they spread until nothing is left. You cannot hide from them. The only choice is to stand." Aaron nodded slowly. Her words carried truth, heavy but clear. A week later, the hunters arrived. Their ships were dark and sharp, shaped like claws reaching through space. They moved in groups, circling, testing Earth's defenses. Even before they fired, the sight of them filled human crews with dread. On the orbital station, Aaron watched as warnings filled the screens. "They are here," Saran said, her voice calm but firm. "And they will not stop unless we make them." Aaron clenched his fists. He had never fought in a space battle. He was not trained like a soldier. Yet something inside told him he could not remain behind. The bond between him and Saran was not just words. It demanded action. He turned to her. "Then I will stand with you." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she placed her hand on his shoulder, her eyes shining with pride. "And I with you." The hidden threat was no longer hidden. It was here, at Earth's doorstep. The time for doubt was over. The time for choice had come. The hunter fleet moved closer with each passing hour. Earth's orbital defenses lit up the sky, lines of ships forming walls across the dark horizon. But to many who stood watch that night, the enemy seemed endless. Their sharp black vessels looked like claws against the stars, spreading wider and wider, ready to strike. Inside the orbital command center, Aaron stood beside Saran. He had no uniform, no title, but every officer turned their eyes toward him as if waiting for his word. It made him uneasy, yet he understood why. Saran had chosen him, and through her, her people placed their trust in him too. The council's orders were simple: defend Earth at all costs. But Saran knew the hunters well. She studied the enemy's formation and pointed to the screens. They will not attack all at once. They will test your strength first. If you break formation, they will divide and strike. You must hold as one. Some generals frowned at taking advice from her, but Aaron spoke up. Listen to her. She has fought them before. If she says unity is our only chance, then that's what we do. Reluctantly, the officers agreed. When the first wave of hunter ships moved in, the battle began. Space lit up with beams of light and trails of fire. Human cruisers fired their cannons, while Saran's ship darted between them, striking with precise energy blasts. For the first time in history, Earth fought not alone, but side by side with another people. Aaron watched the battle unfold from the command deck, his hands gripping the railing. He had no training in strategy, yet his instincts were sharp. When he saw a cluster of hunter ships circling to cut off a weaker human frigate, he shouted for the commanders to send cover. The move saved the ship, and the officers turned to him in surprise. You see what others miss, Saran whispered beside him. As the hours dragged on, the hunters pressed harder. Their ships were fast, their attacks relentless. Several Earth vessels were damaged, and one was lost in a bright flash. Aaron felt the weight of each loss, but he refused to let despair take him. He remembered Saran's words, unity. Then came the moment that changed everything. The hunters launched their largest warship forward, a vessel darker and larger than the rest. Its cannons cut through defenses with ease. Fear swept through the human crews. Some began to retreat. They are breaking, one officer cried. Saran stepped forward, her voice cutting through the panic. No. Hold. They want you to scatter. If you run, you are finished. But the fear was real. Ships began to pull back, formations unraveling. Aaron knew if this continued, Earth would lose. He felt a surge inside him, the same fire that had once driven him to rescue a child against orders. He turned to the comm system. This is Aaron, he said, his voice echoing across the fleet. I am no soldier, but I tell you this, if you run, they will hunt you one by one until nothing is left. If you stand together, if you fight as one, you can stop them. Remember what you fight for. Your families, your homes, your world. Do not let fear decide for you. Stand. For a heartbeat, silence followed. Then, slowly, ships began to move back into formation. Pilots straightened their lines, captains steadied their voices. Aaron's words had reached them. Saran looked at him with pride. Now they follow. The great hunter ship pressed forward, but now Earth and Saran's fleet fought as one. Human cruisers held the front line while Saran's vessel darted beneath, striking weak points. Aaron saw an opening. Aim for its undercarriage, he shouted. That's where it's weakest. Cannons fired. Explosions tore across the hunter warship's hull. Saran's crew launched a final strike, piercing deep into the core. The massive vessel shook, flames bursting from its sides, before it split apart in a thunderous blast that lit the sky. Cheers erupted across the fleet. The hunters, shocked by the loss of their strongest ship, began to scatter. Some tried to fight on, but most pulled back into the dark, retreating into the void. Earth had stood, and Earth had won. When the last hunter ship vanished from the radar, silence filled the command center. Exhausted officers leaned back in their chairs. Soldiers cheered in relief. Saran stood tall, her blue eyes glowing with fierce pride. Aaron let out a long breath. His body shook from the weight of it all, but his heart was steady. He looked at Saran, and she looked back with the same expression she had given him long ago in the canyon: trust, gratitude, and something deeper. "You were right," he said softly. "Unity was the only way." She smiled. "And you gave them that unity. Without you, they would have broken. With you, they stood." He shook his head. "It was not me alone. It was all of us." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. Saran's bond had given him courage, and his courage had carried to others. Together, they had turned the tide. The battle was over, but Aaron knew this was not the end. The hunters would return one day. And when they did, Earth would need to be ready. For now, though, the stars were quiet, and the bond between him and Saran shone brighter than ever. The stars looked calm after the storm of war. Wreckage drifted in silence, broken pieces of hunter ships glowing faintly against the endless dark. The fleet of Earth returned slowly, battered but unbroken. Across every ship, men and women felt the same truth: they had stood together and survived. Aaron sat near a wide window on the orbital station, his eyes fixed on the horizon. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself to rest. His body ached with exhaustion, but his thoughts would not settle. He remembered the faces of the soldiers who had been lost, the screams across the comm, and the final explosion of the hunter warship. Victory had come, but at a heavy cost. Footsteps echoed softly behind him. Saran approached, wearing her dark armor that now bore fresh marks of battle. She looked at him with a gentleness that only he seemed to bring out of her. "You should sleep," she said. "I will," Aaron replied, though he knew sleep would not come easily. "How many did we lose?" Saran's eyes lowered. "More than should have fallen. But less than if you had not spoken. You gave them strength." Aaron shook his head. "It was their courage. I only reminded them what they were fighting for." Saran sat beside him, close enough that he could feel the faint warmth of her presence. For a moment they sat in silence, watching the quiet sky. Then Saran spoke again, her voice softer. "When I was a child, you saved me. I carried that memory through every dark day. It gave me hope that there was good in the universe. Now, when your people stood on the edge of despair, you saved them too. Do you see, Aaron? You are more than you believe." Her words struck him deeply. He remembered the day in the canyon when he had found her, frightened and alone. He had acted without thinking, only following his heart. Now she was beside him as a strong leader, speaking with certainty. She was no longer the child he had rescued. She was a woman who had chosen her own path and chosen him. Later that day, the Council of Earth met with Saran and her people. They spoke of alliances, treaties, and shared defenses. The battle had proven that unity between worlds was possible. At first, the leaders argued over resources and borders, but Saran reminded them of the simple truth: divided, you will fall. Together, you can shape the stars. Her words carried weight. The council finally agreed. A pact was made between Earth and Saran's people, a promise of protection and friendship. It was the beginning of something new. As the meeting ended, Aaron lingered outside the hall. He felt out of place among leaders and generals. He was a simple man who had stumbled into events far greater than himself. Yet as he turned to leave, Saran stopped him. "You are part of this too," she told him firmly. "Without you, none of this would have happened." He met her gaze. "I never asked for this. I only did what I thought was right." "That is why you are needed," she answered. "Others chase power. You follow your heart. That is rare, and that is what I claim." Her last words made Aaron pause. He remembered the title she had spoken when they first reunited, claiming him. He had not understood it then, but now he saw the truth in her eyes. To her, the bond between them was not just gratitude. It was a promise. In the days that followed, Earth rebuilt. Families mourned, ships were repaired, and new defenses were planned. Yet through it all, Aaron found himself at Saran's side. She sought his thoughts, not as a soldier, but as someone who could see the simple truths others overlooked. Slowly, he accepted that his role was no longer small. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the horizon, Saran led him to a quiet place on the station. She stood tall, the starlight reflecting on her skin, and spoke with clarity. I claimed you because you once gave me life when mine was nearly lost. I claim you again because together we have given hope to many. But this time, the choice is yours. Will you walk with me, not as savior and saved, but as equals? Aaron felt the weight of her words. He thought of his quiet life before all of this, and of the bond that had grown between them. He had seen her strength, her loyalty, her heart. He realized that what he felt for her was not duty, but trust and respect that had deepened into something more. Yes, he said at last, his voice steady. I will walk with you. A faint smile touched her lips, rare and bright. For the first time in years, Aaron felt not just like a man who had acted by chance, but like someone who had found his true place. The war had not ended forever. The hunters would return one day. But now Earth was not alone. A new alliance stood ready, forged in fire and hope. And at the center of it, bound by fate and choice, were a man and the alien woman he had once saved. Together, they would face whatever the stars brought next.